Well, hello, and welcome back to the Naked and Truth podcast. It is me, Sari D, and I am not alone this week, guys. I have a very special guest here with me. So we have Mr. Alex Warren, who is a man of faith, and he is here to tell his testimony to us here today. And whether you have a relationship with God or not, I know that this is going to be an episode that is so pivotal in your life, okay? So, guys, here is Alex. And Alex, can you say hey to everybody? Let us know a little bit about yourself and where you're currently residing.
Absolutely. What's going on to everybody in Canada, because I know you're in Canada, and then to everybody listening across the world, from in the States, from the United States to over and abroad. Listen, I'm excited to be here on this podcast. Every time that you can get an opportunity to share your story with someone else or with the masses, I mean, it's humbling to do so. So understanding that's a part of my purpose. So I'm Alex Warren, you guys. For those of you who don't know me, I'm an inspirational speaker. And my story is something that has shaped my life like drastically. It's made me who I am today. So I'm excited to just share my story with you guys. So I live in sunny California. No, I don't like it. You know, I've been in California majority of my life, originally from Tennessee. And so we moved here in 99 and I've been in California ever since. So no, it's not just the high taxes, but it's just the overall just view of things. Don't get me wrong. The desert's nice. The mountains are okay, but you just need a little bit of greenery here and there. And the four seasons, like I really don't care for snow at all. And yesterday it snowed in California for like the third time. You're like, man, listen, just stop. Let's just stop. There's one thing about California is their drivers are terrible. Like, I don't know about Canada, but
that's Vancouver for you. If it snows there, it's like everybody off the road. It doesn't matter if it's a centimeter or what. It's like everybody get off the road because we can't do this anymore.
Yeah, that's exactly how it is, because it's California is not equipped to like handle like rain and snow and all of that. So it just gets terrible. But nonetheless, I'm here in California, and again, it's played a part in my story and my life. So I'm excited to just jump right in.
That's beautiful. Well, we're so excited to have you. And so I know a little bit about your background, but I want to go straight into your use so that the listeners can get a little bit of an understanding, because you have always kind of been a man of faith. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, it is. It's like the phrase of being born in church, even though I wasn't born in church, but I felt like that way because from the moment I was in my mother's womb, it was just a constant flow of just scriptures, her reading scriptures, her playing the word on her belly. So it's every man has been dealt a measure of faith. And so I believe that even inside of the womb, it's pivotal that you do these things with your children, or if you ever plan on having children. I just believe that it's vital that it starts when we say it starts when we are young, which is true. And I believe it starts in the womb.
Yes.
Like you pick up characteristics and mannerisms that, you've never seen your parents like move around or how they carry themselves. But when you come out the womb, it's like you have their same mannerisms, even though you've never seen them.
It's so true. Well, you look at people who play classical music while they're pregnant because they think that it's going to bring up the intelligence of their baby. Well, when you look at speaking scripture over, a stomach like that, you're literally speaking into your child's life, into their future, those words, right? And so absolutely, that would have a lot of power behind it. And so right from very young, you were prophesied over. Is that correct?
Yes. So at 2 years old, so I was walking and talking before the age of 1.
Wow.
So full-blown sentences. I was pretty much changing my own diaper at that point. So, but it was prophesied over my life at 2 years old that I would be a pastor. So now understanding the pastoral role, now that I'm, just a young man, and understanding the pastoral role, it's more about responsibility than it is about, the title or the call of, oh, he's a pastor. So it's just for the care of God's people is what that title means. So you're entitled to more responsibility, more so than just the title of being a pastor. So that was spoken over my life at 2 years old, because again, I've been walking and talking before the age of 1. So, sometimes people say, he's going to be something because you feel like the child is advanced.
Yeah, they
And
stand
sometimes,
out.
yes. And you feel like sometimes people are just talking, and then there's a difference between talking and then just really prophesying, like, no, like I feel this with my entire being, every fiber of my being, he's going to be something. So that was at 2 years old, and here we are now.
Well, and like what's really incredible with you is that you felt this connection so deeply and so young, because, many of us can't necessarily remember those times in our lives, or maybe when we are thinking back to that young, it's more
Right.
traumatic things that we're holding on to than these positive things that were spoken over our lives. And I do have to say that there is a good chunk that has to go alongside with your parents as well, of carrying that legacy along with you as you're growing, to keep reminding you of who you are, what's been spoken over you, and where you're about to go with this, right? Because it really needs to keep growing with you as you're growing, right?
Absolutely.
That's beautiful. Okay, so now you were obviously the kid that stood out a lot. So when it came to like kindergarten fitting in, like what did it look like going into your earlier school years?
So school years, so I've always taken like an early like gravitation towards anything history related and anything English related.
Okay.
And so those were kind of my main subjects in going to school. So kindergarten, it started off normal. Like, how old are you in kindergarten, by the way? I'm
Like
not sure.
4 or 5.
4 or 5, yes. So kindergarten for me, like it was just the start of like what you think is normal. Like again, you have your favorite subjects in school, but this is where I started to look different in my appearance. So kindergarten is really where it started. So about 5 and a half,
Okay.
6 years old, that's when I started to lose my hair. So I've been bald since I was like 5 and a half years old. And
Okay.
so it's just socially awkward. And then
Of
understanding
course.
that kids can be cruel, like,
Uh-huh.
just talking about things that they don't understand. But I don't even blame the kids
Well, and
then.
that's the other part, is that they don't have a filter. So it's like whatever they're thinking is like in front of everybody, and you're like, hello, okay, yeah, this is me.
Yeah, who raised you? It's like, what, mom? What did I say? Like, you said the truth, but it's just like,
Mm.
nah, don't say it like that.
Hmm.
So, kids were very honest, and sometimes the honesty came across in a form of bullying. So bullying started like at 5 years old.
Wow.
Bullying started early for me. So, like you said, there are traumatic experiences that happen throughout the course of our life that can either define you
Hmm.
or completely derail you in life.
Hmm.
So I allowed it to be a defining moment and to catapult me into where I am now, instead of being a derailing moment, because some people, let's face it, never return from certain things to that nature, and even adults nowadays. So
So is
that's
that something, I gotta ask, is that something that you just naturally felt? Or is it something that like your mom was teaching you those hard lessons when you came home and you were trying to talk about bullying? Because like knowing that you're that make or break it, because I don't know, like for me, when I ran into issues like that, I fell into the peer pressure. So I let everything derail me. And so then I was trying to like succumb to like this popularity or making boys like me or whatever it was. So my brain wasn't processing that that was even an option. So like either you were raised that way, either it's just that God was speaking to you. Maybe you don't even have the answer to this, but like what set you apart at that age? Because damn, most of us would be derailed, you know?
absolutely. I believe it's God Himself, and so they're only like your parents' lessons, like they last in the home, and then you expect them as a parent for them to continue when you go out into the public place. So there were some things that, like as a mama bear or any animal or any human being, a mother is always going to be protective over her child, over her
Mhm.
cub, or whatever the case may be. So sometimes the lessons that mama and daddy teach you go out the window when somebody is trying to hurt their child, whether
Very
physically
true.
or whether verbally. So the lessons for me, it was something that, yes, my mom, be respectful and all of that. But when it came to bullying, that's just who I was.
Yeah.
It's
You're
just
listening to
me.
God. Yeah.
Yes. And then you just can't, these are things that you can't fathom.
Mm-mm.
Kids would understand at that age, but my understanding of who God was and scripture at that age was on the level of what most adults should be.
Absolutely. Well, and you know
So,
what? I have a relationship with God, so I know that he's the unexplainable, but I like to tackle these questions because I know a lot of these listeners are probably like, "Okay, yeah, you were just like, oh, I'm going to make the right decision at 5 years old because I know." And it's like, no, it has absolutely nothing to do with Alex. It has everything to do with God and the calling on his life. So I just want to make that clear there. So okay, so you're like, nope, nope, I'm not going to let this bother me. I'm going to keep growing
right.
with this. But something ended up happening over the next couple of years that really defined everything.
Absolutely. So 5.5, it started. So on Fort Irwin is where, I currently work now.
Okay.
Is because the moment has come full circle for me. That was my father's first and last duty station from when we came from Tennessee in '99, landed in Fort Irwin, California. Nothing like what you
Wow.
see on TV and all the brochures and all that. This is what that wasn't this California. You're like,
No.
this is not what is it? What is this? This can't be California. This is nothing what they advertise on TV. And so there on Ryland Drive, I remember it like it was yesterday. I was exposed to mold and asbestos. So I'm allergic to penicillin, which is it's processed from mold and
Absolutely.
all of these
Yeah.
things. And so I was exposed to mold and asbestos, which caused a brain mass on the left lobe of my brain, not growing on the outside, but growing on the inside. So a cancerous brain tumor the size of a grapefruit, which was causing me to lose my hair.
Wow. Yeah. Because if you guys remember earlier on, Alex had mentioned that he was starting to lose his hair very early, starting kindergarten. And that's what really just set him apart. So, what age is this at that you guys are coming across this?
So this is 6. Like I'm 6 years old. So it started with, I tell most people, sometimes in, how can I put this, in culture, your parents or your father experimented with, your first haircut.
Of
So my dad's
course.
been cutting my hair since I was 2 years old.
Okay.
So my mom, assuming that my dad does what he does, he messed up my haircut. This is what she was assuming, like, babe, did you look at this? Did you do this? Because I was losing it from the left side here and it was receding up. And he was like I
Wow.
gave him a haircut in about 2 weeks. And she's like, okay, that's odd.
Yeah.
And then it started like patches. So that's just awkward.
Of
Just
course.
having patches. And so that's when we were taken to the hospital, Weed Hospital on post. And Weed Hospital was like, okay, we got to send him to Long Melinda because there's some of the equipment that they have, we don't have. And that's when they found the brain mass. So this was 6 years old. So yeah, that's
Wow.
when life changed as we know it.
I couldn't even imagine, especially being a parent in those moments. Like that's like the last thing that you ever want to hear. And in those moments you feel so helpless too, right? So what was the next steps that you guys had to take from here? What did that journey of this look like?
So I don't even wish this upon anybody. Not that I have enemies anyway, but I wouldn't even wish this upon like
The worst person out there trying to hurt
the
people
worst
the
part,
most.
the child molester, the rapist, the
I hear
murderer.
you.
Like I wouldn't wish this pain upon anyone. But I tell everybody, if I had to do it again for the sake of humanity, I would do it all over again for the
Mm,
sake of humanity. So I would bear it all. So throughout this process, they're just trying to see, okay, do we need to do chemo? Do we need to do radiation? Like what needs to take place? Is it too late to do anything? So now we're just running test after test after test. Now my childhood is not normal. So I'm not playing sports. I'm not being active like I once was
yeah.
because now in fear of, not really in fear, but in precaution of like, okay,
Don't
we don't want no head trauma.
Mhm,
So we're
mhm.
going to stay away from all, physical activities when it came to sports and all those things of that nature. So
And like, let's just be honest here too, is the fact that you just got a diagnosis where you pretty much just got told that your life's being taken away at 6 years old. You didn't even get to fulfill your life. And they're trying to take away all the fun in your life in this time while
sucking
you're
all the
trying to
fun
heal.
out.
Like literally you got nothing left as a kid, right? When you think
Double
about
whammy,
it.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm not even concerned. Honestly, truth be told, I wasn't even concerned about the cancer. It's just like, what? I can't play sports? Like that was more detrimental to me. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
I can't, I was just doing all of this. What do you mean?
I'm
And
feeling
as it
fine.
continued to progress, I remember like having migraines to the point where like my head would swell, like my vision would be blurry. And I remember like being 6 years old, 7 years old, like slamming my head into the floor, like not hard, but
No,
just
I hear you. Yeah.
like make it stop, sticking my head in the freezer just to cool my
Just
head because
try
it
to
was swelling.
stop.
It was just, that's why I'm saying I wouldn't wish this upon like anybody, like
And like
any,
we all have had headaches that have been like, I just want to rip my head off and like, you know what I
right.
mean? And so like I can't even imagine day after day of you going through this and especially suffering at such a young age, right?
Yes, ma'am. So for me personally, that those were some of the trying times. And then
Mm-hmm.
it goes back to being that mama bear is just like, I can physically do nothing for him.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing that we can do but pray, but believe.
Yeah.
But this is some of the toughest things that a mother has to endure, let alone the person who's enduring this. And so throughout this entire process, this just was trying. So this is where bullying increased even more. Now, no hair, no eyebrows, no bodily hair anywhere. So I'm hearing all of the jokes like, man, you look like a cancer patient,
Of course.
like knowing deep down inside, like, man, I am.
Am.
But I just, like you said, sometimes you fall into the peer pressure of like, okay, now I just want to be normal.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I don't look normal, even
Mm-hmm.
though I don't feel normal, I just want to be normal. Like I just
Yeah.
want to fit in. Like forget being unique for a
Yeah.
second. Like I don't care about being unique. I just want to play sports. I just want to play with my friends. I want to do what I want to look like everybody else.
And I want to remind all of our listeners right now that Alex and his mom in this moment were so helpless, right? Like that's what he's describing right now is this feeling of helplessness. But you know what they had to pick up with? Hope. That's what they
Absolutely.
had to keep persevering with. So your mom's clearly rooting you on at home. You're trying to make it through these long ass days at school. And what's it
Right.
looking like? What's these doctor's appointments looking like? Like,
Long and excruciating because it's one thing to because I was passing out, having seizures and convulsions at school, like during the day, to where sometimes I would have to be transported to the hospital. But it's one thing to be bullied, but it's another thing to be accused of by certain specialists that you're faking.
oh, love that one.
So you're like, oh, he's faking, like there's nothing wrong with him, like he'll be fine. And you're just looking like there's nothing, like you don't know that.
And you know what, guys, like I just want this goes to a lot of my prior episodes is that there's good and evil on every side. There's good and evil in every occupation. And so Alex is not sitting here bashing doctors, but there are very much doctors that have made people feel so almost crazy in
Mhm.
times where they are suffering so bad, and it's really hard when you're in situations with professionals that you need to trust, like teachers, like
Mhm.
doctors, like psychologists, and they maybe aren't taking a good approach, and it can, in a lack of better terms, fuck you right up while you're going through that really hard shit. And that's just what I want to note there, is that we're not bashing doctors, but there
Right.
is good and evil on every single side. And when
Absolutely.
you're going through hard things and you're seeing 20 freaking doctors, it is so hard when you're repeating your story over and over and over again, and nobody has all your test results, and you're trying to bring together this full picture for this doctor, and then they don't even believe you when you're so tired and you don't even want to be there. So that's what I just want to really paint, because I know a lot of people thankfully have not been sick, thankfully have not spent a lot of time in the hospital.
Right.
And I just know off of my personal experience, and I didn't even have cancer. Okay. So
Mhm.
just knowing how lonely, painful, and scary it is when professionals don't trust something that you know is so, so real.
Absolutely. 100% spot on, just with just the feeling, with emotions that most people feel. It's just like, this is flabbergasting to me. It's just like, I wouldn't, who wants to be here? Like,
Thank
honestly,
you.
who wants to be in the hospital? Who wants to eat hospital food?
Mm-hmm.
Who wants to be around
Smell
all
that smell.
yes, like, you think I want to be here? So I'm going to fake it. so I can be here? Absolutely not. I'd rather be doing so many other things. But those were some of the things that were happening in that time. So sometimes I was missing school 3 days at a time, 2 weeks at a time. So throughout this process, where now as we're going through just different grade levels, I was told I would never read and write on the same level or
Level as
comprehend
everybody else.
on the level of everybody else. Like, oh yeah, this brain math, it's just going to do so much to him to where he might not have the motor skills or just the comprehension
So
of
at
it.
this point in your life, what are you being promised with anymore? What is anybody telling you that you're left with? Nothing?
Right. Right. So it's you have the human worldview, and then you have the spiritual worldview. So of course, in the spiritual worldview is, you know what, listen, we have hope, we have faith that, you will make it through. And again, so I'm not like any other child at this point, and not like most adults at this point. So again,
Mm-hmm.
like I said earlier, every man, every woman, every boy, every girl is dealt a measure of faith. Now it's up to you to either exercise that faith, or you'll continue just to have the faith that you were given from birth. And so for me, like I said, these moments are pivotal. Is I've already had a measure of faith, but the things that my mother were doing, that my father was doing, had equipped the faith. The things that I was hearing in church, the things that I was reading in the scriptures, these are the things that build every aspect and every area of faith. And so in the faith worldview, of course, you were hearing hope, faith, optimism,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes in just a human,
Restoration.
yes, in a human worldview, in a fallen state of mind, because that's exactly what the world is we view
Mm-hmm.
things with a crookedness, like
Mm-hmm.
a fallen state. And so in that view, of course, it's just like, well, maybe there's nothing that we can do. We can try this medicine, we can try that. But it just comes to a point, it's like, man, I don't understand Western medicine. Is that everything that you take has a side effect? Like that doesn't sit right with me. And again, we're not bashing doctors or medicine, because medicine has helped a lot of people. It's
Mm-hmm.
just some things that I can't understand. It's just like, you want me to take these things, but it could possibly make me sicker.
Yep.
So
Risk
more
and reward, man. Risk and reward. You
risk and
really got to
reward.
assess it properly for yourself, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's just one thing that I wasn't willing to risk.
Yeah.
When I believe something, it's like, oh, there's no risk. And maybe people may say faith is a risk. Like you're going out on the whim there, and you don't really know if God is going to come through for you.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that I've said before, if you try to tell me that God isn't real or he doesn't exist, it's too late.
Mm-hmm.
It's too late. And the simple fact that we can have dialogue, or different people can believe one thing and you can believe one thing, even proves more that God exists. It's like, wow, we're not conformed to just one way of thinking
Mm-hmm.
or just one perspective. You have been given free will to think whatever it is that you desire. So whatever it is that you desire, you're free to think. And that, even in that proves God is real. So in that time, yeah,
So
just
that's why everybody's too late, is because you already know that he's so real.
right. It's too late.
That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Okay. So now that these doctor's appointments are obviously not your favorite, what are they coming up with for a diagnosis? Like, what's your next step? Are you going to have to start chemo? What does that look like for you?
Absolutely. So now it started when we were 6, and we'll fast forward to the good part of just the entire journey of the things that we go through. Is so I was at Loma Linda Hospital, and they wanted to keep me there from anywhere from 3 weeks to 3 months, just to run some tests, just to be sure on what was the best way to go about getting this tumor out, because
Okay.
it was cancerous, and then it can spread, and we want to catch it
Of
before it
course.
spreads. So in this process, I I believe Jesus rose in 3 days, and
Mhm.
this is where I came in with the mindset of, look, I'll be out of here in 3 days. And doctors have been practicing medicine for 20 plus years. They're like, listen, son, listen, look, just let us do our job, and we'll see if you can get out of here in 3 days. No promises.
Yeah.
Okay. So they're running the tests. They're doing all of these things. And so my pastor comes, and he's, hey buddy, how you holding up? I said, oh, I'm good. Like, that's what I'm saying. you could see that there was something wrong with me, but by the way that I carried myself, there was nothing wrong with me.
You couldn't see his pain in his spirit, is what he's saying, essentially. Could
So
not
you
see
could
it.
see, but you couldn't see it. So it's just like, wait a minute, wait a minute. I can see that there's something wrong with him, but I can't see that there's something wrong with him by the way that he carries himself, by the way that you talk, by the way that you walk or interact with people. And so we were believing for 3 days, and so they're running these tests. And so at 9 years old, I was faced with a life altering decision. And this is not a decision that my mom forced me to make, my dad forced me to make, any religious leader forced me to make. My mom gave me the decision, like, look, this is his body. This is what he's going through. They asked, are we going to do chemo? Are we going to do radiation? Are we going to give him steroid shots? She said, the choice is his. So at 9 years old, she said, what do you want to do? I said, Mom, I believe that I'm healed already. I said, I don't want no chemo. I don't want no radiation. I don't want no steroid shots. I don't want any medicine that could possibly make me sicker. Now, of course, doctors will advise against, because of one thing that they are sure of is statistics of numbers on how many trials were ran with chemo, how many trials were ran with radiation, and how many people survive based off of data, numbers. And so that's what they're sure about. They're sure about the numbers. And it does get kind of tricky mixing faith and then medicine. And then it's just conflicts of interest in that field. And so I didn't take the chemo. I didn't take the radiation. I didn't, no steroid shots, no medicine. And so we had to do a spinal tap procedure. And in the spinal tap procedure is they had to give you anesthesia medicine, because if you move, they could possibly paralyze you in this spinal tap. And this was just to run the spinal fluid to see, okay, has this spread? Like, what do we need to do from here? And so in that, my body was fighting the anesthesia medicine. And every time that they would try to do the spinal tap, my body would jump up, even though I have no recollection of this jumping up, but this is what I was told. I said, man. So they would wheel me down, and 5 minutes go by, and I'm back in the room, and my mom's like, oh, you guys are done already? Like, Mrs. Warren, look, we wheeled him down. He was asleep. As soon as we were about to poke him, he jumps up out of nowhere. So they gave me another dose, wheeled me down. 5 minutes later, same thing. Okay. Now we have to sign a waiver, is because now we have to give him more, but this could possibly hurt him, but we need to get this done. And so they give me the dose, and then they will me, I'm out. Now I'm out for 13 plus hours straight.
Wow.
Man.
Like if that's not a fight in and of itself, like holy smokes, I think all of us have been on anesthesia at some point. And it's like, I've actually had it in Canada, and I actually had my appendix out in Mexico, and they do use different anesthetic for it, because you could just feel the difference between the two. And I felt like in Canada, it knocks you out a lot quicker. And in Mexico, it's like a slower, it's so weird, but both times, like, it's like you're out and people are saying all the funny things that you're saying and all those things. But no, this guy, it takes 3 shots before he finally goes down, and almost a lethal dose of it.
A lethal and that's what it was. Listen, we got to do this, but this is crazy. So just the astonishment in their eyes with never seen that before. So just being a fighter in every aspect of the word. And so after that, what could have been a lethal dose, I was out for about 13 plus hours straight. Okay. And this was the third morning. Now, this is the third morning, and they're trying everything humanly possible to wake me up, poking me with needles, cold water, ice, body as stiff as a board. And so, but I could hear everything. It's kind of like, I explain it like sleep paralysis. You know how you can hear everything, but you can't move. And you feel like you're having an out of body experience. And it's like, man, I can hear everything, but I can't move. And I know what I was believing for when I went into the hospital, out of there in 3 days. Mm-hmm. So they were like, Mrs. Warren, everything has went so well, went so smoothly. But if Alex doesn't wake up and eat something, he can't go home. Immediately I jump up.
No way.
Looking like paranormal activity or something, like, whoa. okay, this is a little weird.
No
Okay.
doubt.
We were trying everything humanly possible to wake this little boy up.
He just needs some
And
food.
he just needed some food. Woo! But it wasn't the food aspect. It was the fact that said that I couldn't go home. And it's just like, oh, no. We're out of here. We're out of here in 3
This is
days.
day 3.
This is day 3. I said, body gets up. And then I hear plainly as day, tell him what I said. It's only my mom to the right of me in the room. And he says, tell him what I said. So like, how you, after school, you're tired and all of that, and you go home and you take a nap, and then you wake up a little groggy. That's how I was waking up out of the anesthetic. Is you're just like, oh man, I'm a little tired. I'm a little groggy, even though you've been out for 13 plus hours straight.
Yeah.
But that's what I felt. And so the moment I get up, he says, I'm healed. And I'm looking like, okay, listen, this is too weird. They said, say it again. I said, he says I'm healed. They looked at my mom. She's to the right of me. And the doctor asked, ma'am, did the chaplain come into the room? She's like, no, sir. It's just been me and my son. He said, son, who told you that? I said, God told me I'm healed. I don't need no chemo. I don't need no radiation. I don't need no steroid shots. I don't need any medicine because God says I'm healed. And so they continue to run all the tests throughout the day. I end up going home that night at around about 8:30. So I still made it out of there in 3 days. And so that was my time and my faith in that moment. And then 2 weeks later, after, they run all the tests and procedures, I remember the phone call like it was yesterday. They call my mom. And, I forgot what I was doing, but her phone was ringing and she said, it's the doctor. I'm like, okay. So I'm sitting there and she's like, hello. He said, Mrs. Warren, this is Dr. Such and Such here in Loma Linda. We have Alex test results on, everything that we did about 2 weeks ago. She's like, okay. He said, ma'am, are you sitting down? Like, it couldn't get,
worse than that. Like you're just like,
worse.
oh my God.
It couldn't get any worse than this. And one thing that I told my mom at the hospital when we were going throughout the test, I said, Mom, whether I live or die, it's okay. It's like, boy, don't say that, but I understand. But that's just where my understanding was, is whether I live or die, it's okay.
Yeah.
And so,
and like as a parent, like it's like your mom was probably like, A, I raised the best boy in the entire world to try to comfort me like that. And like B, though, like not comforting.
Yeah, it's like, I'm like, okay, we raised a good child, and it's like, but don't tell me that. Don't say that.
Damn, boy.
Yeah, like, don't say that. Don't tell me that right now. Don't say that. But to get through. But that's always been my mindset. And so again, whether I live or die, it's okay, regardless of what happens. Amen. And so he calls, asks, is she sitting down? Do I need to? And she's like, well, no. Okay, ma'am, listen, I don't know how to tell you this. I've been practicing medicine for 25 plus years. Your son had a brain mass the size of a grapefruit on the left lobe of his brain. He said, ma'am, it's gone. He said, I don't know what God you guys believe in or what God you guys serve. He said, but we believe. Can you bring Alex back in? So we end up going like the next day because they wanted to run some tests just to be sure, again, doctors want to be sure before they just give a diagnosis or good news. And so
or clearance for sure.
Or clearance. So we get there, nurses are crying, hugging me. Like, oh my God, you are like, you're a miracle. God saved you.
You're a miracle child.
For a reason. And I'm just like, for me, again, it was no astonishment. It was like, how you say, I told you so, but it wasn't
it wasn't in vain. It was that I knew it. It wasn't
in vain. It wasn't to be facetious. It was just like, no, like I told you, like it has nothing to do with me. It's like, I just know who God is and I know what he told me. And I knew this was going to happen to where I don't need to be astonished. I don't need to be surprised. Like, oh man, well, it's gone.
Mhm.
Like I knew it was gone in the moments that I was telling them, even though they saw something, they had sight, but they didn't have vision. So sight is what you
Mhm.
see in front of you. Sight is what you see, like the problem, the turmoil, the tribulations, the things that you go through, whether it be a failing marriage, a dying loved one, or whatever the case may be. Sight is what you see in front of you. Vision is what you see with your eyes closed.
Wow. That's so good. Like, holy smokes. If you guys are not just completely blown away, I firmly believe that God gives us all gifts. And, I think that a lot of us sometimes miss our mark on realizing what they are. And I think that it takes a lot of faith and trust that you are listening to the right voice when the path that everybody else is following is so wide.
Mhm.
And I think that that's what really stands out to me in this story is just your trust in what you were hearing. And I think that that goes back to that I told you so moment is you're like, I know what I heard. You know what I mean? And you know that God's not looking for you to have this big party for him. He just wants you
Right.
to know that it was him. And that's all that he wants is that credit of saying,
Absolutely.
absolutely. So, okay. So this happens to you. You obviously are this miracle child. Where does your life take you after 9 years old? How is the healing journey for you? And where do you kind of see your life going through those teen years?
Right. So I think as a young adolescent, life is a little bit easier to bear. And so I know what God has done for me at that portion of my life. The church knows, but my peers didn't know. I don't know what it is, but I couldn't come to grips in terms of just them being right of like, yeah, hey guys, I was this cancer patient. And then I didn't want to spook my friends like, hey, this is what happened
So
to me.
nobody really knew then.
Nobody knew until about a year and a half ago.
No.
Nobody,
Oh,
so people I
okay.
grew up with.
If that's not humble in and of itself though, like I think that that also goes to go and show just who you are and also just see how much God really is behind you on this because I
Absolutely.
think I think most humans would be like check out this story, you know what I mean? So
Right.
I think that that's really incredible of you.
Yes, ma'am. And I just wanted to fit in still, like regardless of what happened, what just transpired, I just still wanted to be normal.
Mhm.
Even though this experience wasn't normal, it was supernatural. And most people don't understand the supernatural. And when you are born again, the supernatural now becomes natural, meaning it becomes the norm for you. So
Mhm.
these things that are happening are not a surprise. And so for me, I still like was ashamed. It's like, man, I don't want to go. I was going from school to school because we moved like several times before we got to a permanent destination. And every school I go to, my mom we have to have a private meeting with the principal. Hey, he has to wear hats at all times because he has no hair follicles on his head. And he went through this, he went through that. And it embarrassed me. Like I got embarrassed. I'm just like,
Yeah.
Mom, please stop telling my
The
story
story,
to
yeah.
everybody. The principals are, oh my God. Like I didn't want no special treatment.
Treatment.
I just wanted to be normal.
Mhm.
Like, Mom. And I would be upset with my mom, irate. Like she didn't go through all that with me. Like, Mom, stop doing that.
Mhm.
It's like, boy, you can't be ashamed of what God has done for you. I'm like, Mom, but we don't gotta tell everybody.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
and it's not you
Well,
don't hide witness. You get what I'm saying?
yeah, well, and like the thing is that you already knew at that age that people weren't going to understand that it was God. And you knew that that was just going to be a story that was going to set you apart. Not that everybody was like, oh, God moves so good. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
everybody at that age was not going to be sitting in the circle chatting like that with you, right?
Right.
Like, let's just be
Right.
honest. And so it was a great story to your mom because she's at that age where, that's normal, right?
Right.
Where you can talk about that kind of thing. But I feel like, it's not something that you see definitely in today's day and age in school. And they're really trying to
Man.
remove God from school more and more and more. So, just having any types of those conversations when you're not
Right.
actually going to a Catholic school or whatever, right?
Mhm.
So, no, very, very interesting. Okay. So now you have now started to tell your story because obviously it's his perfect timing for the story to be told. So where is this taking you from here? What kind of opportunities have you had with this story? Because I know that you are quite the inspirational speaker.
Yes, ma'am. So this story I know COVID has just locked down a few things, but so I go back to my old high school. I've shared the story with just high school kids. So teaching people, like, listen, it's okay to love God. It's okay to talk about God at such an early age. Youth groups. So I've been in youth groups, sports teams. So I'll go and I'll share part of just, again, what I've gone through, adversity, and just showing them that it doesn't matter what you go through. Again, it defines you, but it doesn't have to derail you.
Mm,
And so teaching people, again, about faith, like everything in this life, it takes faith. Even
mhm,
if it's just this small, it says the faith of a mustard seed can move a mountain.
mhm.
But do you believe it can? So giving people and equipping them with the belief that even the faith of a mustard seed, which is tiny, and the reason why it says the faith of a mustard seed, because God knows he's giving you that much. So success is built into the product.
Mm.
So you have an Apple iPhone or a MacBook or an Android. So Android, they build, the creator of the Android and the iPhone, they build these products to be successful. They don't build the product to fail.
Yeah,
So meaning if God has created you, he's created you with everything that you need
to
to be
succeed.
successful.
Beautiful.
So that's how I view my life. And so that's what I just do now. So just I have awareness.
Yeah.
And so just teaching people to be aware.
Absolutely. So, what's your overall vision, not your sight, of
Mhm.
where you want this to grow?
So for me, I want this book. So I have a children's book that's
Really?
written with this story, and it's still being illustrated as we speak. So that way, even children from 2, 3, 4 years old can read this story, and this can just have some shape and some form in their life. And so we're looking for May. It should be all done and all illustrated. And so just really take my time with that. So just a children's book portion of that, and then just continuing to share this with the masses. So wherever God decides this to go and how large it's going to go, I've foreseen when I was 7 years old, me standing on stages, packed crowds, but not for my namesake,
Yeah.
but for just the sake of God. So just being equipped at every stage and every journey of my life, even when I share this with one person on my job. So it's just no opportunity or no stage is too small. Like if
Mm.
you believe that touching one person is insignificant, you failed already.
Yes, yes. That
Where I'm at.
is, wow, very good advice for all of us that we can apply in so many different ways, guys, because we impact people in many different ways without realizing it. And,
Right.
Alex, I'm so grateful that God used you the way that he has, that you are here to keep inspiring other people. And the other thing is too, is that you're opening up a lot of people's relationships with God. And that's kind of how I want to finish this podcast off is, Alex and I have talked prior about how God is not a religion. God is a relationship that you need to have. And, a lot of people who are listening and who follow me on Instagram probably don't even know that I'm a Christian. And it's not because I don't talk about being a Christian. It's because I want you guys to be able to see my relationship by the way that I treat others, to see my relationship with God on how I love on you. And
Mm.
that's where we come up with this love always wins, is because that's where you got to lead with. And that's how I want to be known as a Christian, is simply just how I lead my life, not because I go to church, not because I'm at the best church that in town or whatever it is, right? It's all about that relationship. And so I know that this pandemic has been more than enough for all of us, on top of everything that life is giving us. And so many people, unfortunately, are getting sick outside of COVID itself. And, I want this story to be an opportunity to open up your heart to something bigger if you don't believe in something bigger. And,
Right.
I know that Alex would be happy to answer any questions that you have. I would be happy to answer any questions that you have. But I think it's really important for us to move forward with hope and faith in something, no matter what that is. And I think that we have really blanketed things to look so black and white that it needs to be a religion, and it needs to have a denomination attached to it. And
Right.
it needs to be, you know, all these things that fit you in a box that make you either black or white. But that's not God. God is everything in between. And that's what I really wanted this story to come off as, because it's not something that I usually talk about, but it is something that sets me so apart from other people. So Alex, I want to know how can people get in contact with you? Obviously, when that book comes out, we got lots of people with kiddos that I know would love to read that. So we will be blasting that out on all of our platforms. But in the meantime, how can we come in contact with you?
You guys can follow me on Instagram at I am Alex Warren, and that's what I pretty much use the most. I know we have TikTok and all these other things, but I think the most effective way is going to be on IG, Instagram. So you can follow me again at I am Alex Warren. You can DM me, you can comment on my posts. That way I can see your questions, but feel free to just hit me up, and I'm an open book, and all you got to do is ask. I believe in doing life with people. And like you said, is people have to see the life long before they ever see what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as you continue to treat people with love and understand that love is a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Love is not like a feeling, because feelings are fickle. They change and they blow with the wind. Like one day I say I love you and the next day I claim to hate you.
Mm-hmm.
So love always wins when you choose to love.
I love that. That is so, so good. What a great way to close off this podcast. So I will make sure that I tag everywhere where we can reach you in the notes. But I just want to thank you so much for your time. It was honestly great having you on here. And hopefully we'll get to have you again on in the future. Okay.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much again for tuning in. And you know that I will catch you next